Hello. Y'all hear us? Me. Okay. People of the chat. Oh shit, I see an oh shit. Okay. We can be heard. We're here. You guys can see the E court. Okay. We are live. Hello, people. Um, everybody say hi, chat.
Hello to the chat. Can you all hear me?
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Okay, they can hear us.
This is
Okay.
exactly how I intended for it to look. Okay.
Perfect. Hey, that's fine.
Okay.
And say
When
so.
you talk and it zooms in. This is
Yup.
great.
Great.
Yep.
Fantastic.
No, perfect.
All right then. Yeah. Thank you very much for that mic. They're saying that mic is super low. Um, didn't sound that way to me, but I can
Myself.
I can turn you
Is
up.
that-
Don't even worry about it.
Okay.
So you didn't sound too quiet to me, but that's okay. I can turn you up. And say, do we want to do like a testing 1, 2, 3? Everyone's volume is much lower than zip. Okay, let me fix. That's easy enough to fix actually. Let me change some settings real quick. Let me turn mic back to normal. I just have my desktop audio.
Of the court.
What's that?
Let's hear it before we agree to it.
Can we make my name be on one line?
Make his name on 3
I
lines.
see. I was gonna say I think it's because Mike's image is too
Mike
big, but
already playing games. Mike already getting into the head of Gilmore.
yeah. Give me a
Or
sec.
you
Let
could
me
get
change
2
this
lines and make
stuff.
it Gilmore, but
Should be fine. I'll change.
I mean, look at this weirdo next to me. Who writes their name like that?
Yeah.
So true.
Mike, I'm really open to this argument. Keep going. Gilmore, shut the fuck up. Let him talk.
Okay,
I
their
mean,
names
I
are
think
on
I
one
already
line.
won, so I don't.
Yeah,
I
we're just
think
gonna
stream's
home.
over.
We're just gonna home cook the fuck out of Gilmore right now.
he found the one thing I'm self-conscious about, unfortunately.
Your Honor, what are you even doing? What are we even talking about right now with this man and his name?
Yeah, Mike did fuck it up by making his shit wide. That's why it changed. But that's okay.
Are we good now? Can we hear me?
Um, Chad, do they sound better now? I just turned my desktop audio to max. Are they still quiet or are they better now? Well, it says
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
it says he likes the Kafka judge outfit.
Yeah.
You guys like it? He's a little bug judge, little judge buggy. They can be louder.
You
Okay,
can be
fuck
louder?
me.
Oh my goodness.
I can fix that.
Can you hear me now? Testing. Hello.
I can just yell the whole time if you want.
It's fine. How about now? Are they better now?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
It's
One,
like
two, three,
Kafka and
four,
Gilmore on
five.
another planet on YouTube. Why are they lower my volume a bit
Do
and
I
theirs
sound
a
like
little bit?
I'm on Earth now? Is this good?
I gotta turn off. I gotta turn off TGG stream. They're talking too much about the people getting arrested. It's too distracting. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we ban Gonda from chat, please?
Gundam's in my chat. Oh
Can we
man.
ban him?
Make him a mod. Do it.
I don't know if I'm doing any of that, but
Tell him if he doesn't release his podcast in the next 30 minutes, he's banned.
Motion granted.
yeah, has been told. Gundam, if you don't release the podcast. Zip can go lower. Okay. Volume's
Yeah,
good.
get lower.
Okay, I just turned
When
everything
Zip
to
goes
equal.
lower, I go higher.
I just made everyone equal. I think we should all be equal sound now. Hold them in contempt.
I don't
Gundam,
agree
you are
with
held
this.
in contempt of court. Good. It's getting slowly better. Volume is good. Okay, volume is good. I trust Peach more than randoms. It has more views than Pisco on Kick. Wow. Pisco streams on
Ooh,
Kick?
dang.
I don't think he streams on Kick, does he? Unless that's what you meant. I assume that was the joke. Money away from minorities. Whoa. I am a minority. Okay.
Oh shit! Wait a second. Okay, there we go. Oh my god. The worst part about all this is it's forcing me to learn how to use technology. Okay.
Gondam,
being
don't
a
get
real
fun of my
judge.
stick figure, but I'm the only one here with a original work of art as my profile picture. Okay.
Yeah.
True.
That's a holographic piece of art right there.
Yeah.
Mine's original too, but I didn't draw it.
I mean, to be fair, Zip Zip and I are both within the Mr. Jim's R
Cinematic
cinematic
universe.
universe. So Just watch
Both
yourselves.
went there. Why is Michael skinny then wide? Don't worry about it, Flexer, okay?
Yeah,
Don't worry
stop
about
asking fucking questions.
He's free basic Ozempic right now.
Yeah.
it. Gundam is... Mike, I see me reading the
Okay.
chat. Gundam is going crazy on you. Holy shit.
There's one thing missing from my picture. Okay.
Okay.
It's a beautiful rack. Okay. All right. How are we feeling? Are we ready to roll?
I think I'm ready to roll. We all feeling good?
We're
If
good,
you
yeah.
guys. Okay.
Chat,
cool.
are we ready?
Uh,
Ready to go? I'll get us started.
let's see.
We're all good. Right. All rise for the
Okay.
Honorable Judge Kafka Esquire for this first episode of the E-Court.
All right. You may all be seated. Bailiff, please proceed.
All right. We've come to this trial on this fine day to resolve a dispute between Mike and Gilmore. We're hearing arguments regarding the H1B issue. Are the changes made by the second Trump administration to the H1B visa system, specifically but not limited to the $100,000 fee implemented just a few days ago, is it good? It's not a discussion, it's not a debate, exploration of ideas, it is an adversarial trial, pursuit of resolution. The judge, Kafka Esquire, will be adjudicating this dispute and will act as our fact finder. All questions will come from the judge, be answered by the parties. Parties will not speak to one another, nor interrupt the discussions between judge and the other party.
Okay. While I'm a practicing attorney and the participants today may be practicing attorneys as well, and this show is styled to resemble a court of law, this is not an official legal proceeding in any way. The show also is in no way an arbitration of any dispute therein. My final opinion, if any, is not legally binding, and nor shall it constitute legal advice in any way. The content of this show is merely for the entertainment of the audience who views it. The bailiff, myself, any person related to the production of this show, and the participants all understand and agree with this foregoing statement.
All right. Each of our parties today have submitted position statements and evidence for the court's consideration for this trial. Both sides have had the opportunity to review all the filings, have had the option to provide the judge all their filings, anything they want to be read during the trial. If you want to see them, we'll be showing them when they come up. After the conclusion of this trial, we're going to make some of the stuff available. If you guys want to see it, we'll probably link to some stuff.
To the parties, Mike and Gilmore, as I said before, I expect you to speak only to me and when spoken to. You'll be given every opportunity to address the arguments and statements of the opposing party. I will determine when to speak to each party and when to cut off a line of questioning. Do not attempt to assist me in such matters, except in the form of objections when you think that the other party is either leading the conversation astray or is arguing in bad faith in some way. Your objections for now are pretty broad. I'm going to ask you to stick with normal objections that you might hear during a trial, and we are going to try seeing debate bro objections, gish galloping, what is it, the lazy gardener approach, all roads lead to Rome approach, stuff like that. If you see that stuff pop up and you want to bring it to my attention, you can make it in the form of an objection. I will address it with you, and I will have the discretion to sustain or overrule such an objection and return to my line of questioning. If you are unable to answer a direct question that I provide or that I ask you, I will infer an answer. Your inability to answer will be included in such an inference. If I find your behavior to be disruptive in any way, I will direct the bailiff to mute your microphone when not being directly addressed. Let me see.
Yeah. To the audience, everybody in chat, if you guys want to ask our parties questions, you can type some questions in chat, and I might just add them to an amicus brief that I will be compiling during the trial. After the arguments have been presenting, and at some point, whenever the judge deems it relevant, I will be submitting the amicus brief filled with some of your questions, and we will read it to the parties, and they will have the chance to respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the chat, y'all have not heard the total pitch on this, so I'm gonna go off script for just a second. This is gonna be kind of a bench trial or legal hearing or pretrial hearing kind of vibe where we're going to have two parties. I'm going to be a fact finder and ask those questions to each party. They're going to present arguments back and forth, and then at the end, there's going to be an opinion. Today, this is a pilot. This is our first ever attempt at making this. We appreciate you guys showing up just to kind of help us stress test it. So sorry if things feel a little slow or a little stilted. We are literally just trying to figure out if this is even something worth trying. So if you guys enjoy it, we really appreciate that. But also, if you guys have feedback, feel free to either shout it out in the chat or shoot me or Zip a DM and just any ideas you have, or maybe something you think that we didn't do great that could have been better. Just feel free to reach out to us on that. Before we head, kick this off, big thank you to Gilmore and Mike for pulling time out to help us out with this. They helped us into pretrial and some kind of workshopping to get this stuff ready to go. So big thanks to them. And Hobbit follower, he also actually helped out quite a bit with this. So
Yeah, and I want to thank Kev Esquire for pitching this idea to me so we could do this together.
yeah,
and have
glaze me
this
more.
show. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he also did a
glaze me
lot of
more.
work for this. Even though he's a fancy pants busy
Talk about
lawyer.
how handsome I am.
Yeah,
About-
and he's
about
handsome.
the-
Look at the
There it
little
is.
look at his little judge's hair,
Okay.
you know, little
Okay, so-
antennae, you know.
All right. So let's see. Mike, you are arguing in the affirmative, so you'll have the first opening statement and presentation of argument. Gilmore, you are arguing in the negative. You have the option of giving your opening statement directly after Mike or before the presentation of your own argument. Do you have a preference?
I'll wait to hear Mike's first and then go from there.
Okay,
that
that's
okay?
fine. That's fine with me. We're gonna since it's the first one, we'll allow it for now. Mike, whenever you're ready, feel free to go ahead and do your opening statement. I don't expect it to go long, but let's try and keep it under 5 minutes.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. So the H1B visa system has been broken for a very long time. It has been thoroughly exploited and abused by corporations to exploit both foreign workers and American workers, particularly at the expense of our homegrown, talented, hardworking Americans. The only beneficiary of this abuse has been corporations. They continue to grow their profits, they continue to raise their prices, while wages continue to stagnate. This abuse and exploitation happens in a number of ways. One is outsourcing, which I will discuss with evidence later. The other one is just the general exploitation of H1B visa holder employees. They're bound to their employers in ways that American workers are not, and therefore they have to agree to worse working conditions and lower wages. And the third is that American workers are laid off, as we've seen in the most recent wave of tech layoffs. Right, these are not people fired for underperforming or for failing to carry out their duties. They're just laid off for no reason at all and eventually replaced with consultant firms that staff their employees with H1B visa holders, or they just outsource it completely. Now, uh, my learned colleague here, right, might try and point out that outsourcing is not related to H1B visas because those when you outsource to other countries, right, those employees are located in other countries. However, the outsourcing I'm talking about is India owned companies, right, that have US offices, that have employees in the US that are H1B visa holders. And these are people that these companies pull from India to America, oftentimes at, in a very exploitive manner, right? They force these people to pay for their own H-1B visas, which at the time the fee was $3,000 to $5,000, and these people are, incentivized to work because the dollar goes much further in India, so they stay in the U.S. on these H-1B visas, work at much lower wages for longer hours in worse conditions, and in this way, a lot of major tech companies have outsourced their IT work to these India-owned companies, even though the employee might be in the U.S. And the purpose of the glorious Trump administration, God Emperor Donald Trump, is to fix one of many broken systems in America, right? The H-1B visa system. And namely by putting a $100,000 fee, ongoing fee for H-1B visa holders, and for adjusting the lottery system so that it's not a pure lottery and that it's based on a combination of salary and qualifications. And both of these things are going to fix the system. It's a tax on corporations. It, because that's what Republicans love to do. They love to tax corporations. And it forces companies to adhere to the original principles of the H-1B visa, which is to hire people that they can't find in America. It's to hire highly qualified people whose salaries would be so high that the $100,000 fee would not be a barrier to hiring these people. And so, all in all, I think the Trump administration's approach here, like everything Donald Trump has ever done in his life, is amazing and the best thing that's ever happened to America.
A strong ending on that one. Thank you. Gilmore, are you going to give us your opening now, or are you going to wait for the presentation of your argument?
I will respectfully elect to defer to later on.
Okay, no worries. Okay, I'm just noting that one moment. Okay, thank you. All right, Mike, you gave some good opening statements, and I really want to dig into first this kind of outsourcing Indian firms here in America. So I'm going to just make sure I'm understanding you correctly in this. There are Indian companies, Indian founded companies in India that have an office here in America. Then they find people in India. Some exploitative practices happen. Those people then get an H-1B visa, come here, and they're performing services here for people. And this is kind of like a contracting where a firm would contract with this Indian company, have those people come in and provide services. And you think that that's not, and this is for work that could be done by American workers. Is that kind of what we're saying here with this outsourcing argument?
That is, you're absolutely correct, Your Honor. If I may point your attention to Exhibit A, is that
Okay.
something we can pull up?
Bailiff, can we pull up Exhibit A, please?
We'll be pulling it up. One moment. Exhibit A. H1B Employer Data Hub 2025.
So this
Okay.
is data from the USCIS, and it tracks in 2025 so far all of the H-1B visas that have been approved. If you look at number 2, Tata Consultancy Services, that is a company headquartered in India, and they perform IT consulting services. And what really that means is the outsourcing I'm talking about. You'll have companies, tech companies that might not even be on this list, right? They could be AI companies. I mean, there are countless tech companies, and Disney is one example is actually being sued for this. Southern California Edison, the local utilities company in California, is also being sued for this by their employees. Is that they hire employees from companies like Tata Consultancy Services to perform IT services at much lower rates. They lay off their homegrown, American-born, highly skilled workers, and and internally there have been many employee complaints about lack of quality. So any type of argument that Tata Consultancy Services provides specialized expertise that Americans are incapable of servicing is just completely untrue. And so these companies who have companies like Tata Consulting Services have been accused, and I'm sure the super fair and super smart President Trump will go after them for their fraudulent behavior on these H-1B visa applications.
Okay, I understand. I see what you're saying, and that certainly, seems like a big number there. But do you worry that this solution of the $100,000 and even the fixing of the lottery, do you worry at all that that might be a bit of a broad approach whenever it seems like we have a specific kind of category of company with a specific type of behavior that maybe can be addressed more precisely? Do you think that this is the best possible approach, or do you think that what's your reasoning why we wouldn't just target these more directly rather than put it on all H1Bs?
The current approach is designed to be broad specifically because people are smart, people are creative. They'll come, if you tailor an incredibly narrow rule that specifically targets only companies like Tata Consultancy Services, they'll just find a way around it. This broad approach, forces people to adhere to the original principles of the H-1B visa, which is only hire people that you really cannot get in the US. And if we're just talking about people who do IT work, people who do coding work, and the salaries, while high, are common in the ranges of 150, $100 to $200,000, there are absolutely Americans qualified to do that. Now, if you have a job where the compensation is three, four, $500,000, even higher, then maybe it's hard to find enough people qualified for that job, and you have to look overseas. But that's what the $100,000 fee is designed to attack, right? You should only use the H-1B visa for these high value, difficult to acquire employees. And the new H-1B visa rules allow for exceptions um, that, in the infinite wisdom of the administration, they can apply for national security concerns, right? So maybe there are some companies that can't afford the $100,000 fee, but they provide uh, critical cybersecurity services.
Let's hold off on that discussion about the exceptions to it. We're going to come back to that in a separate line of questioning. Before we move forward, actually, guys, I apologize. I forgot to make one last disclosure before we continue this. The arguments being made today are not necessarily genuinely held by the parties. These are positions that we asked Gilmore and Mike to take for the purposes of the show today. So let's not assume that people 100% are agreeing with the arguments they're making. We're trying to put on a show, so they are working with us on that. So let's not make sure that we're not going to accuse Mike of being, a MAGA simp or something. Sorry, Gilmore. How do you feel about what Mike's been telling me right now?
I'm just trying to not get deported. Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So if anybody in the MAGA administration is watching, Mike does believe everything he says. Everybody else, though, come on, let's be nice.
So, Your Honor, just to respond to your last statement, my sense of it is if we already have laws on the books, the H-1B visa program that only allows for companies to hire people if they can't find someone else within the United States, that they have to pay them a certain wage, they can't engage in fraud, we should probably focus, or the government, I should say, should probably focus on those things rather than putting in a new barrier, which really affects all these companies if they are playing by the rules, and actually focus on the companies who are engaging in this wrongdoing and, issue civil fines, penalties, whatever it may be, to stop the underlying conduct.
Okay, I hear you on that. And you think that this kind of more piecemeal approach is because I just heard Mike talk about how people are smart, they might be able to get around it. Do you think that are you saying that there's a either a lack of enforcement, like the government has been just kind of turning a blind eye, or do you think it's simply that they just haven't found them yet? Because it seems like the argument you're making to me is that we have the tools to address this problem, we just aren't using them, right? Whereas Mike seems to be saying that the tools we have are too easy to avoid for these companies, right? It seems like Tata somehow is skirting underneath the rules enough that they can survive. But you're arguing that really this kind of broad approach doesn't actually solve the problem that they're looking to solve. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. And just to add on top of that, I understand that there have been severe accusations made by my friend Mike in regards to companies such as Tata. Unfortunately, he hasn't brought forth any specific allegations of any wrongdoing on their part or any fraud on their part. So he's more than welcome to, of course, bring before this court of any specific wrongdoing of these companies, these Indian companies operating within the United States. And there have been in the past, prosecutions of people taking advantage of the H-1B visa program. So the government is fully capable. And the one thing I do agree with my friend Mike about is that I have full faith and trust in the Trump administration to actually crack down on wrongdoing and corruption. So I don't see why we shouldn't trust them when going after these companies who are, defrauding the program.
Good, strong ending. Mike, actually, I'm gonna come back to you on that one because what I'm wondering now is whenever you're talking about this, I feel like I'm hearing a lot of equity arguments about what the spirit of the law is and what the kind of intent of the H-1B visa program is. And while we're not here trying to ascertain any kind of criminal or criminal actions or malfeasance by these companies. would you agree that Tata Consultancy, at least as far as we understand it for this hearing or trial, is not breaking the law? They're interpreting it maybe in their favor, or using possibly some kind of loophole, but you wouldn't posit that they're breaking the law right now, right?
No, Your Honor, I would take the position that Tata Consultancy is breaking the law by lying on the H-1B visa application, specifically when they're asked to answer the question of whether it's possible for them to find or whether these practices would impact the local labor market, and they say
Mm.
no, that is a lie. And I think that's a clear lie, as we can see from the layoffs that we're seeing from the tech companies, where Americans are being laid off and being replaced with H-1B visa holders.
Okay, that kind of leads us into that the second argument that you made. I'm sorry, the third one that you made, that the American workers being laid off and not hired, right? I think it kind of goes hand in hand with this outsourcing thing. So, um, is it your opinion, Mike, that America, for the most part, has sufficient labor forces to handle the majority of the H-1B visa jobs out there? Like, if we got rid of the H-1B visas tomorrow, they all had to leave, and we needed to fill those jobs, what percentage of those jobs do you feel, and I'm not going to hold you to this, I'm just kind of checking a vibe here, do you think that the American labor force could absorb without too much harm? Do you think we'd get 50% of those jobs hired quickly, 90%? How do you feel about kind of America's ability to live without H-1Bs?
I would say everyone who has been mass laid off is capable of filling those roles again. So, whatever number that is, right? These are people waiting in the wings for these jobs. They would instantly be happy to jump on these jobs when they become available. There, if I could reference Exhibit C, bailiff,
Sure.
please.
Yeah, if you pull up Exhibit C, please.
I will do so in just one moment, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Pull up Exhibit C. STL Fed college grad unemployment. Is it before you?
There we are.
So we can see that the unemployment rate for recent college graduates uh, in 2025 has been climbing quite quickly at a rate of 1.34%.
Mm.
That is a tremendous number in the context of unemployment. These are all people capable of handling these jobs, Your Honor.
Mm. I see what I see where you're coming from on this. I think I'm no economist, and I don't have a, you know, great memory of all the unemployment, but I feel like the last couple of years, the U.S. has been plagued with very low rates of unemployment. And to be fair, you're not arguing that we get rid of H-1B. You're saying we should only have the ones we need. Now, uh, Gilmore, on your side, I can't help but agree with Mike on some degree of like you would agree there are clearly jobs that are being taken that could be filled by Americans. Some of these jobs being taken by H-1Bs are not ones that are impossible to fill in America. Correct?
Your Honor, I'm sure there are situations where companies, whether by fraud or by inability to find someone, have applied for H-1B visas and hired someone from abroad when there is someone in the United States who could possibly do that job. And I fully believe that if it is found that a company is purposely defrauding the government by doing so, they should be prosecuted for doing so.
Well, but you're going on. I mean, that's a that's a that's almost a truism, I guess. I'm thinking about you saying that we shouldn't enforce the law whenever it's being broken, but you're saying it's happening at such a low rate that it's not something that we need to address in the way that Donald Trump is addressing. Is that correct? You don't think that it is a significant problem such that there needs to be a broad change to the rules, correct?
Well, Your Honor, I think my response to that is twofold. One is that whether or not there is a large amount of people being hired from abroad, replacing people in the United States who could do the job. We don't know what the number is, and the administration has not come forth with any sort of evidence supporting that it is a large number. And secondly, my belief is that the solution here isn't to just charge everyone $100,000 for bringing employees. I don't think it fixes the underlying problem, if there is an underlying problem to begin with.
Well, I mean, well then do you think there's some other cause of the change in recent college graduate unemployment? Do you think that the H1B is not related to that? Because I mean, I'm looking right here. I can see it's a 1.34 change. Like that's significant. I think that there's 65,000 H1Bs provided each year by the U.S. government. You know, at least a significant portion of that has to be affecting the recent grads, and a significant portion of the recent grads could probably take up those 65,000 jobs. Do you disagree?
I don't disagree that generally that potentially they'd be working these jobs. Would like to point out, obviously, that the highest number of unemployed college or unemployed people on this chart are young non-college educated workers, which would not be remotely the same role as people brought in H-1B visas, who are for highly educated people from abroad. And at the figure for recent college grads, this is a general recent college grads, not specifically in certain sectors where people would be coming in on H-1B visas. So this is a more general number and not a specialized number that we'd be looking for to see if there actually is an increase in unemployment amongst people who would potentially be replaced by H-1B workers.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm seeing where you're both coming in on this. Whenever I think something that's kind of gone unaddressed so far, though, and Mike, this is one I think I'm a little more interested in. I think I'm definitely leaning your way on this point. Is when you talk about the exploiting of employees. You talked about a power imbalance that kind of existed between whether it's the Tata company or whether it's just Apple or Google, where it feels like there's always a power imbalance in any employment relationship, but these H1B visa holders are at a significant disadvantage to their peers in relation to their employer. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what you meant when you were making that argument?
Yeah. So, Your Honor, as you're well aware, our our administration, President Donald Trump, cares deeply about all human beings, especially
Mm.
foreign workers who, are being exploited by these corporations. And the way this exploitation happens is these are people who are in America as foreigners on a visa, right, at risk of deportation at any moment, and they're completely at the mercy of their employers. If they lose their job, they can be deported on a whim, um, i- and they can't find another job in the way that an American theoretically could, even though because of this travesty of a system, they can't, right? American workers theoretically could just find another job. An H-1B visa worker cannot, right? If they lose their employment from their sponsor, then they have to leave immediately. Then they have to find a new sponsor all over again. And so there the amount of leverage that an employer has over an H-1B visa holder is tremendous. And they wield this leverage by paying them less, right, unfairly, by subjecting them to worse working conditions. This could be something like long hours, or it could even be a series of small things like small cubicles and no air conditioning. But in any case, it is a horrendous treatment that I'm sure deeply offends our president.
Well, I'm not trying to necessarily disagree with any of that. I don't think I have the it's believable what you're telling me, but two questions on that. And first, these H1B visa holders, when they're working, they still have FLSA protection. They still have the same labor protections as a normal non H1B holder, correct?
Yeah, they're still, they're still given the bare minimum protections, but they're not treated equally as an American would be doing the same job. They're not compensated the same way. They're not provided with the same benefits. So sure, perhaps there's some minimum workplace safety standards that need to be met, and they're certainly paid above minimum wage. Uh, that is still deeply unfair, and I'm sure in a way that is very offensive to our president.
Okay, and then the second one on that, as far as these H1B holders, they're coming in, are they aware of this? I'm sure they feel in some regards, oh, I've got to, jump through extra hoops. But as far as like coming into this kind of relationship, not to victim blame, but are they aware of kind of that power imbalance and kind of what they're subjected to? before they arrive, and they say, you know what, I know that's not great, I don't like that, but it's still a better opportunity than what I have at home, so I'm willing to take that kind of negative relationship over in exchange for a better chance. Do you feel like that's not communicated, or there are misrepresentations made to these employees before they take on the H-1B visa?
They may or may not be aware, and I'm sure in some cases the more predatory employers do make misrepresentations. But even if they were fully aware um, of what they were getting themselves into, that doesn't justify this type of exploitation.
Okay. Gilmore, how are you feeling about this? What do you think about kind of the state of H-1B workers and kind of their relationship with their employers?
Sure, Your Honor. First, I just want to note for the record that H-1B visa holders are subjected to prevailing wages, which means that their wages cannot be below a certain point. So there are additional restrictions put in place regarding their wages that normal, or most, I should say, employees in the United States don't have. So there is an added safeguard there for H-1B visa holders in terms of their wages. In
To be
terms of
clear, when you say that, you're saying a safeguard, but is it a safeguard or is it just a higher minimum? Are we talking about they've just got a higher floor than the average worker
right,
as
instead
far
of
as
just using
wages?
the minimum wage, Your Honor, there is
Okay.
a kind of a survey for the industry that they paid at least at the same level or above other employees doing similar work in their field. So there is some protection there for these H-1B workers to be paid a better wage than other people who they potentially would be replacing.
But
Uh,
you wouldn't say because of that they're not being exploited, and I don't think you even say that that means that they're not being exploited greater than an average worker, would you?
I would say that there is certainly a greater risk if you are a H-1B visa holder. However, I would say just as any other employee, anyone can be fired at any point in time. Most states here are at will employment, so just like any H-1B worker, any at will employee can be fired at any time and then out on the street and not be able to work. So the fact that they are paid more than the average employee in the United States is an added bonus for them. And at the same time, they're either working here or they will be back in the country they were from in the first place and wouldn't have the opportunity to work here anyway. So they have this added bonus in the first place that they wouldn't be available to them without this program.
I think I see where you're coming from, but I think that you can agree that being fired, whether both types of employees are at will, as you say, the American employee, if they get fired, they're out on the street. The other one, they're not just getting fired and put on the street, they're getting fired and they're putting on the street of another country where now they're having to leave behind whatever assets they have in America, whatever friends and family they have here. I mean, some H-1B holders can be in America for years and develop, build an entire life here, and then on the whim of a company be fired and then have to abandon all that to return to a country that maybe now they don't even recognize. Do you acknowledge that that is a significantly greater harm from being fired than an American worker?
Yes, of course, Your Honor. There obviously is a larger downside to being fired or leaving your company for an H-1B worker versus being a American citizen working for an American company who gets terminated. But again, if they didn't have this opportunity in the first place, they wouldn't be able to come to the United States in the first place, and they wouldn't be able to build up, a life here, with a high-paying job for a good job, and have the assets in the United States, but for this program.
Okay. Okay. Mike, do you have anything more on this? I think I've got one more argument from you, and then we're probably going to go into our first chat questions.
No, we can move on to
Okay,
the
I
next
think
point.
the I believe your final point was about this being a corporate tax, and I think we can add into that, if it's okay, kind of this idea that since it's the one-time fee, it's kind of amortized across the entire career of the client, right? I think we can kind of make this a more kind of corporation focused engagement rather than the H-1B visa holder engagement. So, um, why are you saying that a corporate tax, just by it being a corporate tax, that makes it better? Why do you think that that is a positive for this H-1B visa fee?
Well, I think the corporate tax serves multiple purposes. It serves to help attack our deficit It funds, and it's also a way to keep these corporations accountable. These corporations have been exploiting both foreign and American workers for generations, and this is a fee that the corporations have to pay, not the employees, right?
Mhm.
And so the corporations are the ones who, are footing the bill, and which is only fair and appropriate. And it's set at an amount that is reasonable because highly skilled workers typically command much higher salaries, such that a $100,000 fee is not going to completely deter that type of hiring, but it would require the corporation to, pay for that.
Your Honor, can I make an objection real quick?
Let me hear it.
I just want to. My objection is for hypocrisy on my friend Mike's part, in that he is a strong supporter for Donald Trump and his policies, but yet now is saying that corporate taxes are good.
Okay. Okay. So you think that it's a hypocritical statement to say that corporate taxes are good while also making the true statement that Donald Trump's policies are unimpeachable. Um, I'm going to actually overrule it, but not with prejudice. I understand why you're saying it. I think that when looking at this, I think that Donald Trump's, while it might come across as a corporate tax, I think Donald Trump is probably doing this for the good of these companies and understands that sometimes you got to go through a little bit of a rough patch before things get better. As we all know, that happened with the tariffs. We all went through a really tough time with the tariffs, and now everything's much better. I think that I can see that an intent behind this enough that we don't need to get into a question of hypocrisy here. But objection is still noted. Mike, did you have anything further on that one before I follow up?
No, but I just want to note on the hypocrisy point that the president is has the American people in his heart,
Mm,
and
mm.
he has not completely removed the corporate tax. He may have lowered it, but he's raising it in other places in ways that ultimately will benefit the American people. So yeah, Donald Trump is not categorically opposed to corporate taxation, and levying it in this way, which in the aggregate is not a very high amount, I think is not hypocritical at all.
Well, well, I agree with everything you just said. I would like to then ask you this. I think we all one of the great parts of this administration is how much they hate immigrants. And whenever I look at this and I see immigrants abusing our system, Donald Trump is now punishing corporations for it. As you say, corporations are carrying this burden, and it's really about these immigrants. So why is it that if we're trying to solve a problem of letting immigrants into the country, we are focusing on the corporations here, right? Those corporations are owned by Americans. Those corporations generally are American, except for Tata. I guess Tata, fair enough. But for our American companies, how do you feel about him attacking them over immigrants?
It's because the ultimate wrongdoers here are the corporations that enable this type of invasion, so to speak.
Mm. So Gilmore, whenever
I object to
I
that for racism, by the way.
hmm,
I object to that for opposing our glorious administration. By the way, I'm going to report you.
all right, we can table that for maybe a different hearing. We can discuss the both the racism and attacking our administration. But first, Gilmore, I'd like to hear from you about kind of why you think it's okay that corporations shouldn't have to bear the burden that kind of these immigrants coming in and displacing American workers, right? I think that whether or not, let's say tomorrow, every corporation was like, fine, we'll pay the $100,000. Well, boom, now we are getting a significant amount of money in every year that the government can then use to help these disaffected workers, right? Right now, I don't really see how the government is using the H1B program to help the people that might be displaced or might suffer negative externalities from the program itself. This $100,000 per visa seems like it's giving the government the money it needs to help these Americans here. What do you think about that?
Your Honor, if I could have exhibit, let me just look at my exhibit list one real quickly. Exhibit 1 brought up.
Okay. Bailiff, can you bring up Exhibit 1, please?
Bringing up Exhibit 1. restriction on entry of certain non-immigrant workers from the White House. It is before the court.
I'm not seeing it on the screen. There it is. Sorry, it was probably just delayed.
So this is just so the court's aware. This is the statement put forth by our great leader Donald Trump in relation to, or I should say, President Trump. I'm sorry, in relation to this policy about the $100,000 fee for H-1B visa holders. And I think one question that should be asked of my esteemed colleague Mike over here is, where's the money going?
Where's the?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Where's the $100,000 going?
1 second, please, Mike. So you're saying that while the government is receiving this $100,000, there's no clear path of it being used in such a way that it would actually help the American people. You're questioning whether or not this is something that's directed into like a program that would help displace workers or something like that.
I would even judge respectfully go a step further and say there's no instruction whatsoever about what should be done with this money. It just says it should be paid by these corporations, and it leaves it at that.
Hmm. Okay, fair enough. So even if there is a corporate tax, the public benefit is not clear. Well, but what do you think about the idea that, these corporations, they're very clearly, they wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't profitable, right? They wouldn't be using H1Bs if it wasn't something where they're gaining a benefit from it. Do you think that there's no that's not, are they really profiting because they need these people here, or do you feel that they're profiting merely because they no longer have to pay American wages, right? Do you think this $100,000 does not balance that out in some way and truly help us kind of winnow down to the only needed people?
I think these corporations hire people because, I mean, again, employees are a cost for a company. Companies generally, regardless of fines, taxes, anything else, only hire employees if they think that that employee in the private sector, let's say, is going to bring in some sort of revenue or help the company in some way financially. So, as a general matter, I would say that these companies who use H1B visas certainly are at least expecting to profit off of these employees. Whether or not they're profiting more because of bringing an H1B visa holder versus someone in the United States, which potentially may not exist to hold this role, we don't know and hasn't really been put forth before this court. But I certainly agree with the general basis and the general fact that corporations only bring in employees if it stands to benefit from doing so.
Well, your Honorable Judge Kafka Esquire has muted microphone.
Sorry, everybody. Apologize for that. Boomer moment. Mike, I believe so your argument is that right now um, is that the wages being paid under these H1B visas are so low that they're bringing in workers that they wouldn't if they had to pay this $100,000 fine and that or fee, and the $100,000 fee is going to make them truly kind of only select the ones they want. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, and if you're not, it's fine. But there currently is a program to get a visa for exceptionally talented individuals, and that is totally separate from the H1B visa program. And are we not turning the H1B visa program into something kind of more akin to that rather than to more of kind of labor focus? It seems like if we do this, the H1B program is going to be for C-suite executives and incredibly specific specialists. No?
Your Honor, I believe you're referring to the O1A program,
Correct. Yes.
which is for extraordinary individuals. And that is a program designed for example, athletes, celebrities, and the qualifications for an O1A visa are quite different from the H1B visa, even as intended, because the O1A visa is meant for, requires some type of public recognition. There's a list of factors I don't have off the top of my head, But they're quite different from the H1B requirement, which is specific to higher education and highly skilled workers. A lot of the O1A visa holders aren't actually employees of any company. They don't work for anything in a traditional sense. They're not W-2 employees in that way. So I think they still serve different purposes.
Okay. But I feel like we're coming closer to the last thing I wanted to touch on. You brought it up earlier, and I think it fits in with this last argument well, is this concept of a waiver. Let's try to keep this a little bit short because I think we all understand the arguments behind it. But you feel though as though the waiver system in within this proclamation is such that it would protect vital companies, vital jobs that we do need H1B as they currently exist. Is that correct?
Yeah, it gives the administration discretion to, give a helping hand to certain industries necessary or vital to national security.
But I'm looking through Exhibit 1. I'm not seeing necessarily a clear or well-defined kind of structure for that, and I'm wondering if that might be if it's not very well defined now, if that's not going to be a pathway to abuse. How do you feel about not obviously this administration, like if a Democratic administration got in and they started really abusing this to only help certain companies? How do you feel about arguments in that direction?
Anytime the government is afforded discretion, there's opportunity for abuse. And, as the Supreme Court has correctly said, the only remedy there is impeachment. So, in the event that the administration is abusing this waiver exception, then just impeach them.
Now, Gilmore, I know this is part of your arguments that you're going to be making, so we don't need to dwell too long. If you want to bring it up later, or we can talk about it now. But how do you feel about the waiver system that's included in the proclamation?
So Your Honor, I obviously have my objections to the at least how it's written in the proclamation about the waiver process. I do address it pretty lengthily in my statement, which I think would be better addressed then, just to get it all on
Okay.
the record at the same time.
That's totally fine. Mike, I'm not going to cut you off. If you have any other arguments or statements you'd like to make before we move over to Gilmore's arguments, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Now's the time to speak up.
Nope, I'm happy to hand it over to Gilmore.
Okay, and then Gilmore, as far as being able to address the arguments that Mike presented, do you have anything else that I might have missed or you feel like needs to be addressed before we move on?
Your Honor, I think you did a wonderful job questioning my esteemed colleague Mike, so I think we're okay leaving it there.
All right, you got right up to the edge and knew when to stop on that one. Good job. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm being passed a note by the bailiff. One moment. Okay. It says here, audience members in the gallery, please remember to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Kick and Twitter, ZipZip45 as well. I'm on Twitter for as Real Kafka Esquire. I sometimes reply to Destiny with less funny things than he originally posted. We don't currently have a specific channel for this show. We're mostly just doing it all on ZipZip stuff because every time I try to stream, I end up doxing myself and having to delete the VOD. So we'd really appreciate if you guys would contribute that way and help support the show. Right now, we're really honestly just looking for feedback more than anything, trying to make sure this is something that you guys would actually enjoy watching. Also, a few other plugs that I'm also required to make as I'm at gunpoint. The Pragmatic Papers is out there. There's a lot of good shit in there. We're really ramping stuff up, and this very show actually might soon host a few debates involving them. The Bunker is a great Discord everybody should check out if you have not. And shout out to BNN, another great newsletter with some awesome articles. Hoping we can also get some good discussion around articles from there on this show.
Your Honor, I would also like to mention that yourself, you are also engaged in tweets replying to Gavin Newsom as well. Less funny than was originally posted as well.
Yeah, I've really been, I don't get as much engagement on that, but he's just really a funny dude, and I can't help but like try to steal some of his valor for myself and get attention, because that's what this is all about, is attention for me. Did we have any? Do we have an amicus brief from the chat, even if it's a short one?
We do indeed have some questions from the chat, Your Honor.
So before we get into those, I'm just going to do a quick explainer. Parties, you are free to answer questions if they're not directed at either party. If they are directed at a party, let's have them answer. If the other side wants to respond, they can. If you choose not to answer these, that's totally fine, and it won't be noted that you didn't answer. These are questions from the chat. I can use your answers to reach my opinion, but if you choose not to answer a question, I won't hold that against you. These questions were submitted by the chat, and they were provided to us at the discretion of Zip. So he is the person that chose which ones to bring in. So he's the one to blame if they suck.
Your Honor, they do not suck. We have quite a few questions. Our first question is for the judge. Does the loser of this debate get tarred and feathered? This was submitted by Fudge.
We are kind of working on that. We do not have a tar guy yet, so we would love to. We don't actually have the tar for it. So, I'm not saying that can't happen in the future. But right now we're probably not going to be able to do that. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Is
Your
it
Honor.
true that you weren't able to get the tar because of Trump's tariffs?
I am not going to actually comment on that right now, because if it's kind of hard to say if it's the tariffs or if it's the tar company being greedy and unfairly charging me for a tariff that they should pay. So I'm not ready at this time to comment on that.
Your Honor, before I read the next question, I would like to mention that you misspoke there. Sorry, the company is not the one paying the tariffs. It's the other country that will be importing
True. I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
the tar to us.
Yes. I appreciate you helping with that.
Of course. Next question is for Gilmore. This is from Flexer. Gilmore is not actually pro H1B. I believe this question was for Mike.
Mike?
The question for Mike is whether
Or
I'm
sorry.
pro H1B.
Sorry, I thought this was referring to the pro H1B fee. Gilmore, are you not actually pro H1B? Since these are not actually truly held beliefs, you may choose to answer or not answer.
Sure. So for religious reasons, I don't say my truly held beliefs publicly. So I reserve an answer for that one.
Fair.
Has been noted. Our next question is for all present. Is everyone here aware of what happened to friend of the court, the Princess? This was edited from a question by Fudge.
I believe he was arrested earlier tonight. Thoughts and prayers, obviously. The violence needs to stop.
Gilmore and Mike, are either of you aware of the injustice that has been done to good friend, the Princess?
No,
I
what
have
was
not-
he arrested for?
I'm receiving a note
Yeah.
that he was arrested along with other roommate Legacy for stealing the GPU of one of their roommates because he was not paying rent.
Do we know if this was a core power of them or no?
I have not been made aware of the status of whether or not that is court power. However, I am also told that we cannot inquire as to whether or not that is a court power.
All right, so I'll reserve judgment until I hear from Pam Bondi on the issue.
That's fair. Before we move on, though, can we all agree that we disavow left-wing political violence?
Mike, I'll
course.
go to you first.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you.
I disavow all political violence. All
Okay.
political violence matters
That's been
in a way that it should not happen.
that's been noted. Okay. All right. Bayless, do you have any more questions?
I'll ask one more. I've got two more. I've got one from Gondam for the judge and for Gilmore. Why is Gilmore allowed to argue in favor of H1B visas without disclosing that his wife came over here initially on an H1B? Gilmore, is this true?
We're getting close to doxing at this point. Gilmore, memes aside, let's be careful.
Wait, is that true? I didn't know that was. I thought it was a meme.
Just to clarify for the record, that was only my second wife who came
Okay.
in on an
Understood.
H1B visa, not my first or third. So
Literally doesn't even matter.
yeah.
Understood. Then the last question for the court is by me. Should I tackle Mike for responding to Gilmore when he was not addressed by you, Your Honor?
I commend you on your restraint. on not doing so. It's a pilot episode, so let's give these guys some grace, but good instincts.
Thank you, Your
Okay,
Honor.
that was a good first run on the amicus brief. Mike, thank you for the presentation of your argument. Gilmore, you reserved your opening statement to be made at the beginning of the presentation of your argument. Whenever you're ready, you can go right ahead. Or actually, real quick, do the parties want to take a break, get water, use the bathroom, anything like that before we go into the next presentation of arguments?
I'm fine either way, Judge. Whatever you prefer.
Okay, Mike, are you good to proceed?
I'm fine as well.
Okay, Gilmore, whenever you're ready.
All right. Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. Also, hi Zippy. We are here to discuss the proposed $100,000 payment for every H1B visa. While there's a stated intention by this administration of helping out American workers, in reality, this policy only punishes innovation, allows for an already corrupt administration to exert its ever extending usurping of power into the executive branch to pick and choose winners, and leaves ordinary Americans worse off. First, this arbitrary $100,000 fee prices out smaller firms, such as startups and nonprofits, who cannot afford to pay an extra 100 grand for every specialized foreign worker they need. Meanwhile, larger corporations, which already make up the lion's share of H1B visa recipients, will just get an even larger portion of the visa holders. Instead of helping out American workers and small to mid sized firms, the largest benefactors will be these large multinational corporations. If anything, this is just a gift, a handout, if you will, to big tech. Secondly, this policy gives the Secretary of Homeland Security, none other than Kristi Noem, the unilateral power to waive the fee at her sole discretion. We've already seen this administration pick winners and losers when it comes to executive control over which corporations or industries shall receive certain benefits, just like with the tariffs. This crony capitalism will just present more opportunities for the Trump administration to engage in corruption with no accountability. I imagine that it will not be long for companies such as Intel, who this administration has already purchased 10% of, to suddenly have these fees waived for them, unlike other corporations. Third, the justifications don't line up with reality. The public statement put forth, which was shown before, complains about outsourcing companies closing American offices and shipping jobs overseas. But H1B visas have nothing to do with outsourcing. They're about bringing workers into the United States. Making visas cost a fortune doesn't stop outsourcing. In fact, it likely will just increase it. If a company can't afford to bring specialized talent here and pay the additional fee of $100,000, it'll just send the jobs abroad and hire someone abroad. It's akin to banning scales to fight obesity. Fourth, and potentially most importantly, while most of the talk about H1B visas is about big tech companies, we have to consider the vital fields where there's a great need for highly educated workers, just like in healthcare. Rural America already faces severe doctor shortages, and this policy will make it even harder and more expensive to bring in foreign doctors desperately needed in these areas. And when a rural clinic can't staff its ER, the people who suffer are ordinary, hardworking families living in areas where hospitals are not profitable enough to operate, let alone pay an extra $100,000 for every doctor they have to hire. And until Bernie Sanders is president, this is not going to get solved anytime soon. As for the costs, just like the tariffs, they'll be passed down to consumers. So more expensive products, higher medical bills, and higher tech costs. Ordinary Americans end up footing the bill for bad policy dressed up as patriotism. Lastly, for the arguments put forth by my friend Mike in his statement, if the true concern is that companies are underpaying H1B workers, treating them unfairly, and other issues of that sort, then we should fix those problems directly. We should require employers to pay H1B workers equal or greater wages than their American counterparts, which is the case right now, and we should enforce those rules that are currently in place. That protects US workers without crippling businesses or increasing outsourcing. In sum, this policy is not about protection. If we're being honest, this policy is just a way for the Trump administration to find a way to appease those seeking to restrict minorities from entering the country. It is wholly in line with other restrictions on asylum and trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. Instead of helping boost the American economy, bringing in specialized workers who will have a low propensity to commit crime, it punishes small businesses, prevents healthcare access for the most needy, and hurts the American consumer. The only real beneficiaries are large corporations and political cronies. This $100,000 fee does not safeguard our economy. If anything, it sabotages it. Thank you for your time. And just for the record, the Gandhi and Gilly show will be coming out this fall. Thank you, Your Honor.
I will note again, our honorable judge, Kafka Esquire, is muted once more.
God damn it. Thank you. Let's note that about the Gandhi and Gilly show. We need to hold this guy to account. As we go into this second presentation of argument, I'm going to ask the parties to not retread arguments that we've gone through in Mike's presentation was absolutely necessary. Let's try to just kind of stick to this and the arguments we have here. I think for me, right out of the gate, when I hear you talk about this fee being arbitrary, pricing out smaller firms and helping larger firms, um, I have to wonder how much are these smaller firms relying on H1Bs as much? Is this really something that these smaller firms use to a significant degree that this would really harm them?
So in my review of the topic, Your Honor, I've seen smaller companies such as Reason, either .com or .org. I can't tell off the top of my head, although I am a subscriber. Has actually said recently that they do have one contributor who is on an H1B visa, and that they will not be able to continue their program going further if this $100,000 fee is in place. So there certainly are smaller companies such as Reason, which is a nonprofit, and also for hospitals, like I mentioned before, it makes it much more difficult to have to bring in a doctor or a nurse, whatever it may be, into these more rural areas where doctors don't normally go to because it pays much lower wages than other parts of the country. And with the shortage of doctors in this country already, it makes things much tougher for these hospitals to actually afford to, have enough staff to satisfy the needs of the community.
I don't want to get too far down the specific specialized worker deficits just yet, but I do want to ask you about kind of the reason.com, things like that, these smaller firms that maybe and you kind of mentioned it where it was instead of an H1B they would outsource. I feel like so many jobs are work from home nowadays, things like that. Why do we want to bring an H1B visa holder over here instead of just having them outsource that job overseas? If it's a work from home thing, they're either going to do it that way, or they're going to bring them here. Why do you think there's a real benefit to bringing them here over just letting them outsource and then we don't have to go through this whole H1B process?
Well, Your Honor, I think if a company finds that it is in their best interest to outsource the work, whether it be cheaper or for any other reason, they're already open and able to do that. Nothing's stopping them from doing that. And I don't think anything in this policy would result in more Americans getting jobs here. It would just make it more expensive to hire people from abroad, which would result in these companies just hiring people who already are living abroad and just allow them to keep living in those countries and just have them work, remotely. So I don't see how it actually results
I
in
see.
higher wages for American workers because I think those jobs get shipped out anyway. Unfortunately,
I see. All right. Okay. Thank you, Mike. Whenever I'm hearing Gilmore's argument on this, I think it's striking something here because, as you said, the companies are bearing the burden, and I don't think that Google, even if they had to pay the $100,000 for every single H1B they had, is really going to suffer that much. It's a one-time fee of $100,000. They're paying these people many times that already in salaries, and I don't think I mean, maybe in the long term, maybe with their calculus, they might say, okay, we're going to hire more or less, whatever. But I don't really think that Google is going to be suffering under this. But whenever I think about smaller companies, I think that we're just essentially just removing a competitive advantage that they might be able to have, or at least a competitive equalizer against larger firms. How do you feel about potentially merely kind of stacking the deck in favor of larger companies?
A couple things, Your Honor. Even though Google could easily pay the fee, it's still a business at the end of the day, and having to pay an $100,000 for someone is going to factor into their calculus of hiring an American worker or a foreign worker. And the whole purpose here is to incentivize hiring American workers who are otherwise qualified. Um, with respect to the competition point, there are a lot of companies that are smaller than Google, but bigger than a small startup, for whom they do need to think quite seriously about whether they'd like to hire an American or a foreign citizen. And that's the purpose of this change, Your Honor, is to force them to genuinely consider hiring homegrown Americans.
I think that's a fair point, but I then also wonder about a lot of these larger businesses and their ability to be granted waivers. I don't think that smaller startups and even some of these medium-sized firms we're talking about are going to have as easy a path to be granted a waiver. Let's say now what we're seeing is smaller firms are paying the $100,000, but Google, they have military contracts. So do a lot of other tech firms. They have a lot of government contracts. I feel like, have the connections. They have the lobbying power to come and get the waiver. So not only are they not only is a small firm paying a fee that makes it harder for them to get H1B, potentially these larger firms aren't even going to be paying this fee. So they're not even actually suffering at all. It's a steep. Do you worry about that potential happening?
Well, because I'm confident that President Trump is capable of hiring the best people, including Kristi Noem, who I'm sure has all the merit and credentials necessary, and she's, earned her position entirely on merit, that she's capable of identifying, what portions of Google, for example, are necessary for national defense and which portions are not. And there are smaller companies who might, do cybersecurity work that is vital to national security. And these are people who've promised to drain the swamp, Your Honor. They're not corruptible. They'll be fair and honest in their application of their own stated principles, I'm sure.
Gilmore, I think we're this kind of leads into one of your arguments about how the cost is passed down to consumers. So it's your worry that if we add this $100,000 charge, right, whether it's the company paying that or having to hire an American worker that is paid a higher wage, you're worried that this is ultimately just going to result in it being passed on to consumers, and we're all going to have to pay for more for the services. Um, do you not think that there is kind of that's going to be balanced out by a benefit again of now we've got American workers, maybe they're getting higher wages or maybe they're getting paid higher wages, but now we have Americans with higher wages spending their money here rather than those higher wages being paid to H1B visa holders who were sending that money home or are not, at the very least, not spending the money in the same way that an American worker might.
That's a good question, Judge. I think that there really are two possibilities here. One is if this rule is quote unquote effective, American firms will be less likely to hire people on H-1B visas. Then they won't be collecting the $100,000 fee from these people, and we will have American workers potentially hired, or like I said before, they'll be outsourced. So I think either way, the costs will either go up for the firms for employment because they'll be hiring someone in America who probably costs more, or the jobs will be outsourced, so the jobs will be gone, but the consumers will get cheaper products and services. So I think either way, either it hurts consumers because the American worker gets hired at higher wages and things cost more, or the work gets outsourced, prices go down, but again, we're not hiring more American employees. So I think there's a downside both ways via this policy.
I see. But I mean, I think you would agree that, the amount of H1B visa holders and the amount of jobs that we're talking about here, this is not a huge part of our economy. Like I said before, 65,000 H1Bs are given out a year. That's not nothing, but at the same time, I mean, do you think it's so severe that you're saying this is in the collection of your arguments, right? Not that this is so severe that it by itself would be even potentially noticeable day to day. It's kind of more of a contributing factor. Would you say, or do you think there is a significant, impact that we would see in our economy?
I think there certainly will be an impact. I don't know how significant that impact will be. Actually, can we bring up Exhibit 3A for the record?
Yeah, let's please bring up Exhibit 3A.
Bringing up Exhibit 3A for the court.
So this exhibit here is part of a study that was done called the Economic Impact of the H1B program on the United States. Ironically, was actually cited by the executive branch when putting forth in place this policy. My guess is that the executive branch probably read the first paragraph and then just didn't read the second paragraph of this portion, because the first paragraph kind of gives off the impression that there would be a decrease in Americans hired for these jobs, a decrease in wages for Americans due to the H1B visa program. But in the second paragraph here talks about because of the increase in people brought over here on these H1B visas, it actually results in an increase in American salaries in non-computer science college educated workers. So in not all other industries, in other industries outside of computer science, there actually is a increase in salaries because of this H1B visa program. And I can't imagine most people who voted for Trump or support Trump are within the computer science industry. So I think the people who normally would support Trump probably would want a policy in place that increases salaries for all other categories of workers outside of computer science.
Okay, understandable. So, Mike, when I'm looking at these numbers and I'm thinking about how the kind of cost externalities are kind of come out from this program, how do you feel about the idea that are either the workers generally are going to be making less money because jobs are being outsourced, or that any costs associated with H1Bs are going to be passed on to consumers?
Two things, Your Honor. I think to the extent that prices are kept low through exploitation of foreign workers, that's not justification for that exploitation, as I'm sure you've seen uh, our incredibly wise administration stance on tariffs and acquiring cheap goods from foreign countries. Um, on the economics point, Your Honor, I can't fight the study as it is. I do note that the date here is 2001, which is quite a long time ago. And to the extent that we're talking about price increases, like you said correctly, Your Honor, this is a small portion of the economy. I can't imagine 65,000 people being paid. Slightly more is going to increase prices across the board in a way that consumers are going to notice.
Well, I think that it's kind of I think it might be kind of getting to the spirit of the proclamation here. While maybe universally, we're not going to notice a few cents more overall. I feel like it seems like it's not taking us in the right direction. I think the H1B program is at its core an economic program for the U.S. And I feel like even if maybe okay, well, we can generalize it such that we aren't going to feel the negatives. If we're admitting that there are negatives to it economically, I feel like we're straying away from where we're trying to go with H1B. Would you agree?
I would posit that there could be long-term gains because just because prices increase, if we are hiring more Americans, there are more dollars in American pockets, and therefore American consumer spending and purchasing power also increases. And that could easily outpace the increase in prices. And that's how America has grown so far. We have inflation, but we have growth that outpaces that inflation. And so long as we focus that growth internally within domestically, then that would in the long run benefit Americans.
That's fair enough. I think I'm good on these lines. As far as Gilmore, let's get back to the specialized worker deficit. You were focusing primarily on the healthcare industry, and I think I'm definitely sympathetic to this, and I understand what you're saying. Whenever we look at that, what's your response to saying, well, the healthcare industry, obviously that's prime for waiver, right? That's prime for the administration to come in and say, you know what, we're not, we've got these shortages out here. We have a release valve whenever, we say, you know what, this program might not be doing the right thing in this specific sector, So why can't the specialized worker deficit argument just be addressed by waiver?
So just, Your Honor, before I address that point, may I just bring up one more exhibit on the last topic, and then we can move to the waiver?
That's fine. Go ahead.
Sure. Bailiff Zip Zip, can you bring up Exhibit 3B?
I will bring it up right now. Exhibit 3B is before the court.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bailiff. So this is a chart that was in that same study. Personally, I don't know what it means, but it seems good to me that the open economy number, the line on the graph, is going up, while the closed economy one is staying stagnant. So I'd much prefer to be in the open economy.
I think we can all agree that as attorneys, we are not economists. And so at best, we can read a chart and see a line going up and assume that that's a good thing. Mike, do you have anything to say about this chart? You're free to make the same level of statement as Gilmore just did about it.
Well, I'll note that as attorneys, while we're not capable of reading numbers, we are capable of reading words. And on the y-axis, the words say number of foreign computer scientists. So, of course, in an open economy, we'll see more foreign computer scientists. That doesn't prove anything, Your Honor.
Well, but when I'm looking at, God damn, I can't read this thing. Okay, great. Thank you for bringing that up, Gilmore, making me look at a graph. Let's go on then to we were talking about before. Where was it? We're talking about our specialized economy. So our specialized worker deficits. Why can't the waiver address the specialized worker deficit shortage, Gilmore?
So I think it's possible, Your Honor, that the waiver would address that issue. My concern is I don't fully trust this administration to actually do waivers for nonprofits like hospitals and other smaller companies, and really will tend to do favors for other companies, like I said, Intel, who the United States just purchased 10% of. I don't see why they're not just going to, just with the tariffs, get certain benefits behind closed doors or out in the open, if President Trump talks about it, from these companies. So they decide to do waivers for those companies while not actually doing it for the most deserving of the visa requesters.
I'm going to come back to you on this, but Mike, questions about corruption, questions about bias, things like that, I think are appropriate to be made. But I think another question that kind of is ringing in my mind right now is the waiver not kind of an admission that the proclamation itself was overly broad? I don't think that I didn't see any kind of time pressure that couldn't have given them at least hey, here's the industries that we're not going to apply this to, right? It seems short-sighted or maybe slapdash to me that they come in and they say, well, we're just going to have a discretionary waiver rather than a more fleshed out system. And I think them doing it allows Gilmore to raise these questions that are very hard to address.
Well, I for one wouldn't dare, Your Honor, to question the integrity or the competence of our administration. I will say that there are alternative solutions. For example, instead of a waiver, there could be a new classification of visas for specifically high need industries. There's any number of possible alternatives, but just because the alternatives exist doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to fix the problem in a way that our incredibly wise administration has chosen to do so.
Mm. Okay, Gilmore, I think we're now leading into your discussion very clearly about this kind of picking winners and losers. Right? You talked about that before, and I don't think that we need to necessarily question the current administration, but we can at least hypothetically discuss the idea and maybe kind of just like the concept of having these release valves be so broad that they open the door for whichever bad actors in the future that may be there to pick those winners and losers. So how do you, why should I assume there's corruption whenever we clearly need to have some kind of flexibility with policies like this? We need to be able to adapt to new industries that come up and may become important, and at changing times in which maybe there's, national security issues or emergencies that would make us want to waive these fees. So maybe you expand a little on that argument for me.
Yes, Judge. May I introduce a exhibit for identification purposes only?
I'm going to allow it. I really have to stress that exhibits brought and surprise at trial need to be well justified for why we didn't hear it before. Parties were given the opportunity to present exhibits prior to trial, so we should not be having these unless there's for good reason. Go ahead and present it, and then we can decide whether or not we're going to include it.
Thank you, Judge, and I welcome any objections from my esteemed colleague, Mike, if he has any. But just for identification, I would like the bailiff to present the exhibit.
Your Honor, I've
Please,
already
go
received
ahead.
the exhibit. I'll be putting it on the screen now.
Thank you, bailiff.
It is before the court.
Objection, Your Honor. This image is highly prejudicial. It incredibly unfairly characterizes the highly competent and super deserving Director of Homeland Security in a way that goes beyond mere identification, Your Honor.
The prejudice, the objection of prejudice is noted, though I'd like to hear Gilmore's statements about the exhibit and his use of it.
Thank you, Judge. So, as I mentioned in my opening statement, our esteemed Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, is unilaterally in charge of deciding which immigrants and foreigners to allow into the United States to do work. And while I am certainly not one to besmirch people in such power and have authority, to make important decisions in this country, there's something about Miss Noem that I can't quite point to that makes me a little bit concerned whether or not she truly would have it in the H1B visa's best interests of deciding whether or not to allow certain people into the country. Again, I don't know exactly what gives me that feeling or that vibe. This is very vibes based, but I just have some concerns about that.
This is a court that recognizes vibes arguments. While they might not be entirely persuasive, vibe arguments are accepted here. We're going to go ahead and we will accept the exhibit, but its late entry and surprise nature is going to be noted, as well as the prejudice brought up by Mike. Bailiff, go ahead and take this down.
Gladly, Your Honor.
It's very distracting to have her looming over us. Then I think for me, I feel like the last one is we're talking about justifications. And Gilmore, you argued that justifications didn't really line up with reality. I think Mike brought up this idea of outsourcing and kind of how it can still exist even with H1Bs through the Tata Corporation, but also then I think also this discussion of, well, then if we don't have them here, we're just going to offshore them anyways, right? Go ahead and why don't we dig a little bit into this? What do you feel like the justification is being stated here as, and why do you think that does not line up with what the actions of this administration took?
Yes, Judge. So my concern, again, if we go back to Exhibit 1, I don't know if we need to show it on the screen. I think we've seen it enough times now. A lot of statements put forth by both the Trump administration and in the actual policy that was published on the whitehouse.gov website talks about outsourcing, talks about how too many jobs would be shipped abroad. This policy doesn't address any of those things. Nothing in this policy stops companies from shipping jobs abroad. Nothing stops any domestic corporations from hiring people in other countries that are just living in other countries. This policy only addresses people being hired by American firms or firms located in America, bringing people to the United States to work here. If anything, making it more costly to hire people in the United States will just result in will result in jobs being shipped abroad for much cheaper. If I could pay someone, $30,000 abroad to do a job, or I could pay someone $50,000 in the United States plus an additional $100,000 on top of it, of course I'm going to go along and pay $30,000 to someone abroad, especially just as Your Honor raised before with remote work since COVID. It makes things a lot easier to work from home and will just, increase the rate of jobs being shipped abroad in the first place.
Mike, I think this is a good time to be asking you about this because I think that we can read this administration's words in the proclamation. It's clear they're concerned about outsourcing. It's clear they want to try to reduce this kind of offshoring that's going on. Can you draw the path for me to show me how this H1B policy reduces that offshoring?
Of course, Your Honor. So, to the extent that these companies would, let me distinguish. There's the sort of geographical offshoring where they hire employees located in foreign countries. And there's the sort of H1B offshoring I'm talking about, where they hire domestic employees on H1B visas, but that these people are nevertheless sort of imported specifically to do a job. That the geographic, to the extent these companies would want to pay someone in India $30,000, they would already be doing that. The reason why they're hiring these H1B visa workers is because, for one reason or another, they need someone on premises to perform whatever technical services are required. So, by forcing these companies to either hire American workers or pay more for the same foreign worker, there's no risk of increasing, for example, the $30,000 offshoring, the $30,000 geographic offshoring, because that would have been happening anyway. And, that is a problem that can be tackled differently, but this wouldn't have an impact because, to the extent that these companies would switch to the $30,000 worker, they would have already done so.
Understood. Gilmore, I think this is going to be kind of a general question from the court, not sort of specific argument you made. But how do you feel about the fact that, Congress really is having a hard time, even with the majorities and public mandate that it currently holds, in getting significant immigration policy passed? We're really not seeing the improvements that we need in our immigration system. And, maybe this isn't the most precise or perfect solution for H1Bs, but at least maybe it's some kind of progress. Do you feel like, Trump should be ignoring the issues that we're seeing, or, should we just throw up our hands and say, well, Congress hasn't fixed it, so we shouldn't do anything?
Your Honor, I'm totally in favor, and I think the Republican Party and Trump have made clear that they're completely in favor of legal, safe immigration. And I think the H1B program is exactly that. It is a legal program that's been in the books for a long time, and it's a safe program, and that the people who are being quote unquote imported to do work into the United States have a very, very low rate of crime. And also, we know that they're employed, so they're working. So I think this is the safest and most legal, very legal way of handling immigration. And it's, again, like I said, it's very clear Republicans have always been saying for decades now that they want safe, legal immigration, and this is the perfect way to do it.
And Mike, I'm going to come back to you in a similar question, but maybe from a different direction. I think Gilmore pointed out some good stuff there that, you know, these are people working, these are people paying taxes, very low rates of crime. We're all terrified of illegal immigration here. And, if there was a real problem with H1Bs and there was something we need to fix, why aren't we going through Congress to do it? Why do we have the feeling where we need to have the executive making these very public and, broad statements and changes to policy, rather than taking the time to sit down and fix the problem the right way the first time?
Well, to the extent, Your Honor, Congress is even able to solve the problem, it would take a long time. And the problem, to be clear here, is the American worker, particularly the highly skilled, highly educated young American worker, being left behind. And we can't afford to wait 2 or 3 years because this is a generation of lonely men, dangerous
Mm,
lonely men, and so
mm,
we need to
mm,
solve this problem immediately.
Before, yes, yeah, no, I understand. We're all terrified of the young, lonely men.
And
Okay.
just for the record, I agree with my esteemed colleague Mike on that.
Mm, the young, lonely men being scary. Uh, I okay. This is great. Gilmore, do you feel like there are any arguments that I didn't address from you, or any statements you'd like to make before we kind of get into the end of the show?
I believe that's all I had on my end. Thank you, Judge.
No worries. Mike, was there anything that you feel like you didn't get a chance to address within Gilmore's argument?
Nope, Your Honor.
Okay. Bailiff, did we have another amicus brief that we needed to address before moving on to closing statements and opinion?
Yes, Your Honor. Indeed, we do. We have a couple of questions that could be submitted for before the court. One question was one that was just submitted just a moment ago in response to the surprise exhibit. Somebody asked, "Isn't that the lady who shoots dogs?" I believe this question would be addressed to Mike.
Those are baseless accusations, okay, founded on what is clearly a joke, an online meme. And these types of accusations that are constantly levied against the incredibly pious and righteous members of our administration doesn't deserve any further consideration.
Gilmore?
I believe that not only does she actually, I don't want to say this for possible TOS reasons. I will hold back on my comment.
We appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
I appreciate you as well, Gilmore, for that. Your Honor, I would like to note that the source for the dog shooting allegations is in fact Christine Ohm's book, um, written and published by herself.
I'll take judicial notice of that. Thank you. Any further questions from the chat?
I have one that was added by myself in response to a comment made by Pickles Nathan. The question would be for all present. Starting with you, Your Honor. Pepe or Yi?
I was born in the Pepe all the way.
Mike, do you have an answer to this one?
Pepe.
Gilmore, do you have an answer to this question?
I believe that Pepe is racist, so I will have to go with Yi.
This is, I'm noting this.
Yeah, the court has noticed this in the court record. For myself, I will also answer that Pepe wins.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot to be gained from that. You saying that at the end, whenever you know who's got the most, but also noted. Very well. Is that all of our questions?
Indeed, Your Honor. That is all the questions.
Okay. Normally, I might actually take a little bit of time here, review my notes, go through it, and come to an opinion. I'm going to, in this case, have to side actually with Gilmore. I know it's a shock, but I do see a lot of his arguments. Mike, you actually had some pretty good ones in there. While I don't think that your arguments were entirely wrong, I just don't know if I was convinced that this proclamation is the way to solve those problems. I think that kind of the rough nature of the proclamation and the policy being set forth really makes it hard for me to see it kind of fit into the goals of this administration. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I meant to give you guys closing statements before the end of that. Fuck it. Go ahead and give your closing statements. I'm sorry. I'm tired. I'm trying to get us through it. Gilmore, you went first Mike, you went first on opening statements. Go ahead and give your closing statement, and then Gilmore, you're going to give a closing statement. Pretend like I didn't say anything about my opinion.
Just the record, you said Mike first, correct?
Mike, yeah, because Mike made the affirmative, right? So he's going to be going first on the closing statement. If he wishes to save 1 minute for rebuttal, he can. And then Gilmore, you're going to do the second closing statement.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Gilmore first.
I apologize. I might be sleepy.
Yeah, I'll do my closing statement. I think the glorious Trump administration has identified a clear problem in our immigration system, one of many, and this is one way to solve it. And uh, I think my co-counsel here, Gilmore, has acknowledged that these are problems that need to be solved. And so, at least on that point, he has conceded. And to the extent that some may disagree with the approach of the administration, I would just say that is. Have they considered that Joe Biden did some FISA warrant thing in the past? And, that's probably Trump derangement syndrome.
Okay, thank you. Gilmore?
First off, before I begin my closing statement, I will admit that I was diagnosed with TDS back in December 2020. In 2020, I'm being medicated for it, and I'm working on it. So I don't appreciate opposing counsel mentioning that, but that's besides the point.
Mike's HIPAA
Um,
violation has been noted.
Thank you. Your honors, members of the chat, this $100,000 H1B fee is wholly illogical. It doesn't protect American jobs, it will just result in them being outsourced faster. Small businesses and rural hospitals get crushed while big tech wins, as usual. And then there's the Christy Nome wildcard clause, giving her the powers to waive fees whenever she feels like it, or get a benefit for doing so. So in the end, what do us real Americans get? Higher prices, fewer doctors, more outsourcing, and a gift for Trump's political buddies. Your Honor, that's not patriotism. That's pay to play with a flag wrapped around it. Everyone, F's in the chat if you totally agree. And lastly, the Gandhi and Two Idiots podcast is coming out this winter. Thank you for your time.
All right, great. And now the long-awaited opinion that you'll have no clue what I'm going to say. I'm unfortunately going to have to rule with Gilmore on this one. I just cannot see the path for the policy. That being said, I'd like to note that Gilmore is way more cringe because he clearly prepared way more than Mike. He actually wrote shit out in his reading it to me.
True.
So let's all please take note on that. Mike came off way cooler and way less like he actually gives a shit because he didn't, just read shit to me. But guys, everybody,
I spoke
super
from the
appreciate-
heart. I spoke from
Yeah.
the soul. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he gets the genuine award on this one for sure. Um,
In fairness to me, Mike actually believes these policies, so it's a little bit easier for him to talk off the cuff. I need to, do extensive research and put together things against my will. So just
that's
for the
fair.
record,
That's fair.
Exactly true.
Thoughts
I
and
was
prayers,
gonna
thoughts and
say,
prayers.
Mike is known for being genuine in this particular.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna round it out a little bit with a whole bunch of thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to our participants today, and thank you, Zip Zip. Real quick before we close out, if we could just do 5-10 minutes of just kind of a little bit of workshop and powwow, and just kind of get some feedback from everybody. Everybody in the chat, feel free to shout out how you feel about it, any ideas that you have. Mike Gilmore, my judge's wig is off. Let's just have a free open conversation. How do you guys feel like the show went? How do you feel like the flow of it was? What are your thoughts?
I'll go first. I think I think that the format makes sense. I'm just trying to fit it into like the sort of live streaming Twitch space, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, Gilmore and I are both attorneys, and so we're used to
Right. And
this type of format where you need some evidence and you need to sort of take turns and you need to at least like have cogent arguments for what you're trying to say, right?
I'm
But
yeah.
yeah.
I know where you're going with this, and I agree. This first one, I intentionally got 2 lawyers for it because I wanted that part of it to work as well as possible, so we could get chat on the screen, get this, rudimentary production going, and make sure we could go beginning, middle, end, get through the show, and just see what it looks like.
And also, this in theory
Um,
also could work as, if somebody needs to see kind of how the show works, you could send this to
Right.
they could see.
Yeah, just kind
'Cause,
of a. But I definitely hear your criticism there, which is why our next show is going to be a little bit is going to be very intentionally. We're not going to have it's not. We're going to try not to make it like a political or legal argument. It's going to be with people that aren't lawyers. We're going to add a few things in, but I definitely am keeping that in mind in my personal review of this show.
yeah, I think we're too well behaved
Uh,
for this.
A little bit.
I think so, but also like I think with like let's say what I was going
I
to
think
do.
like it shows that it works
Mhm.
Yeah.
if you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
two well-behaved people, but if you don't,
What does that look like? Yeah.
what does that look like? And if it means that ZipZip has to keep muting people,
That's awesome.
then like are they?
I think. For me, I would
Yeah,
love it
well,
if I
if
had to do that.
if they stick around, sure, but I think it's a fine line between just like making the participants frustrated and then rage quitting.
Right. And
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you there, but I think there is kind of a middle ground. Like I think if I had Destiny and Rob Noren here arguing, I think I could probably get them even if I had to mute either one of them for it, they would probably stick around if it was a good discussion, things like that. Especially people that are very like focused on getting like, I want to make some content for myself here, right? And also, I am trying to push with. I think Zip and I are both trying to push with this show is something that is on the far end, in the opposite direction of a lot of these debate shows. I think a lot of the debate shows we see are just so loose and so just like go off, whatever. That putting something out that is intentionally very far away from that, just to kind of shake up the space, I think is the direction. But I am very sensitive to your feedback on the like it'd be really easy for people like actually fuck this, I don't want to do it. That being said, the amount of like pre-show work that y'all did is probably more than what we would really expect out of people. To us, like if someone just sends us like, if we send someone a prompt and we say, "Can you just tell us what your opening like position is going to be on this?" That's probably going to be enough for most people. For something that maybe is a little bit more formal, like if Destiny wanted to do an Israel-Palestine debate, or if Pisco was like, "I want to pull someone in and talk about like a specific legal ruling," in those I might say, "Okay, I want you guys to give me a little bit more." But like, if we're gonna have two people come on here and argue about dating advice or some, crazy online shit, I'm not gonna have as much of a like, you need to bring exhibits. But I
Exactly.
would, I
Even
will,
the exhibit, it can
right.
be like just, oh, here's a couple links to open, and then you just like read them.
Yeah, I mean, we're very flexible with like loosening it up depending on the topic, depending on the parties. But no, I definitely agree with you. How did you guys feel about kind of the pace of the show going back and forth, like from y'all's perspective? Did you feel like waiting for me to finish talking to the other person with that dead air for you? How did that feel, kind of observing and stuff like that?
I liked it actually, giving additional time to kind of like think about the answers and what the other person's going to say. I think you did a good job of when Mike was answering questions, and then there was something that I wanted to bring up. I didn't really feel compelled to bring it up because it did seem like you came to me right after, kind of in the same vein. So I think you did a good job with that personally.
Okay, because that is one thing that I'm worrying about, and I don't want. And I was trying to make sure that I really was like, I don't want to ask more than three questions to a person without going back the other way, right? Like I want to make sure that like I'll give people time to talk, but I don't want to be making too many arguments myself, and I want to make sure that when I'm going to the other side too is I tried very hard not to agree with people too much, right? I feel like I was pushing both of you whenever I was talking to you, just like, hey, make that argument to me. How did y'all feel about me kind of just really kind of pushing on you throughout the whole thing?
Well, I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
think
just
you were
yeah,
pretty.
it's good at that. I think.
Yeah, I think you were good at pushing both of us on our positions. Um, I guess let's just like, I think it for me, it all kind of circles back to like what happens when you have two people who are not well behaved. And I know you're well aware of this, so it's more of
Hmm.
just me thinking out loud of
Sure.
like, if we're using Destiny and Rob Noor as an example, um, when and this may be it's just because this is like built into these online debaters, right? Like the moment the other person says something that enables me to own him on that, right? Like there's a desire to jump on that immediately.
Mm.
And if you like block that ability, I mean, if they come into this knowing that they're not going to be able to do that, then that's one thing. But maybe that's just something to make abundantly clear on the front end, which is like, because like what people like Rob like to do, right? They'll say like five crazy things, and then they'll maybe end on one thing that sounds reasonable or whatever. And what someone like Destiny might want to do is like, okay, well, let's talk about the five crazy things you said, right? Like, he doesn't want to let them go, which is fair, but he has to like in Destiny's shoes, he has to rely on you to catch those five things. And even if you could, right, like, does he have the patience to do that? And then on the other side, like,
Right.
does Rob have the patience to, so um, I think you would be asking for a lot from these people in terms of patience that they normally don't exhibit, but maybe if they're aware of that coming in, right? If it's made abundantly clear that like you're
Yeah.
not going to
Yeah,
be able
from my
to jump
understanding,
on
like
someone.
the people would be well aware, and then also, it didn't really happen that much in this one, but we do want to kind of expand. We have like a different ideas for like how we could expand like objections. Like we had said at the start like if object you could do like objection gig galloping or like objection it's insert logical fallacy here, and we could do for like a debate between Destiny and Ragnar. We would probably want to add like, you know, we expect more of
and
like,
what I
hey,
would-
people are going to be objecting back and forth and just talking about stuff, and then
Yeah, what I would say there is also be prepared for them to try and litigate the objection. You know what I mean?
Right.
yeah,
That was
Um,
one we did do a ton
yeah.
of today, but like I am expecting that. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm like my. It sounds like my baby is waking up and screaming.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna have to hop off right now. Feel free to keep talking
good.
about it and speak your ideas. I'm gonna watch the VOD back, but I do actually have to go take care of that. I'm really sorry.
All right,
Everybody in
good,
chat, love
Kefka.
you all. Thank you, Mike,
Love
Gilmore.
ya,
You guys are awesome.
bye-bye.
Zip, zip, great job.
See ya.
Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
having us. Wait, Zip, you should jump into the judge's chair.
I can do that. That is a thing that I'm capable of doing. I know.
So I was gonna say that I think for a debate with people like that, the issue is going to be a lot of their responses are going to be about hypocrisy by the other side. So it's be hard to play devil's advocate when he's questioning, Rob, let's say, and Rob's gonna bring up, or actually, Rob's gonna be more pointing at hypocrisy. If he's questioning Destiny about, wasn't Trump doing, stopping free speech by doing X, Y, Z? Rob's point's gonna be, but back in 1868, old man Withers, once sprayed someone with his hose, so that's why it was actually hypocrisy there. That's something that Kafka's probably
Yeah.
not going to know about.
In theory, for that
That's
sort of
how
thing,
all
it's
those
going to be
conversations
like.
go.
In theory, for that sort of thing, it's going to be like, if you want to make the argument for hypocrisy, like that's possible, I suppose. But like, I would guess, and if Kefka's here, I guess he probably would say similar. Is like, ideally, like you wouldn't have to get into like hypocrisy because, the format of the show kind of lends itself like we're talking about the issue, and like Kafka's gonna be questioning you on the issue. Like we're not really gonna go into like, other random shit. Like hypocrisy, like could work as like if you want to bring it up, but in theory it wouldn't necessarily come up that much, unless as a literal rebuttal. So like not exactly as like
I'm just saying they'll
hypocrisy, but
they'll get frustrated about that, is what I'm going to say.
probably yeah.
But, it also depends who's involved. But I also think if it is a less formal debate, like if it's like an interpersonal dispute between people,
Mhm.
I think that could work out in this format.
Yeah,
too,
I think
just
so.
because
And
it's
it's
much
like
more hectic.
the tonight it didn't really happen that much because it's like, well, and actually it happened more than I thought. Because of the fact like it's a boring like, oh, H1B, like boring, like we're talking like stats and kind of a little bit and whatever. But like in theory, it's gonna be there's a lot of entertainment like to be had, and like we had a lot of ideas for like how like different segments we can do, all kinds of random shit that we could just like throw in to like make it more entertaining. And we kind of did it in this one by having like the veneer of like, oh, glorious leader, dear Trump, and like different other things. I tried to do so with like my questions jumping in, like Pepe Yi, or are we gonna be tar and feather,
You can only
like
make
shit like
H1B
that.
visa conversation so exciting,
Yeah, it's like a like dull humor, if that kind of makes sense. It's like with
Sure.
certain things of the show, but also I think depending on the topic, we would like mix it up and be maybe more energized on this sort of thing. Also, probably we were just tired because it's late for me and ES. Yeah, I've got a couple questions from chat that I want to ask and see. Well, Vlexer asked, Mike, are you a litigator? If you choose to say.
I was for a couple of years, but I'm fully corporate now.
Based. Okay.
Although
I
I still
guess-
do some dispute resolution, like pre-litigation dispute resolution.
Oh. Guess the show, it's like nostalgic for you, huh? In one way. Definitely
I mean, I always
exactly the
liked-
same as a real courtroom.
Exactly the same. I always liked, mock trial training, stuff like that.
I was gonna say, like, that's definitely like the kind of vibe we're going for, is like mock trial type kind of thing.
I definitely, I think this is a good format. I think it's certainly different, and you guys have something here. I do think, the next stress test, I know you guys are saying it's unhinged, but it would be an excellent stress test if the two litigators hated each other. Or
yeah,
like,
we definitely want
there was
that
some
sort of thing to
animosity there.
happen. Like, it would also be funny. Like, I had this sort of idea, like, if for some debate, like it could even be like literally, like, two people that hate each other, and then two people will be their lawyers, and they'll have the arguments, right? And they'll like be in the
put them on the
call,
stand
or
and
they're
stuff
like
like that,
they
you're
won't be
saying?
there.
Huh.
Go ahead.
You like had them on the stand. Yeah, like,
Yeah. Like
crimes.
in theory, if it's like some random drama shit, right? it could be like a full like fucking meme thing of like, here's gonna be um Destiny and let's say hypothetically, right? It's like Destiny and Peace go and they're like relitigating the fucking like socialism communism thing, and it'll be like Econoboy as Peace Go's lawyer, and then fucking Counterpoints as Destiny's lawyer, and they're
Oh
like
man,
doing back and
R.I.P.
forth.
Convoy.
Yeah, yeah, rip Econoboy, but it's like it could be that sort of like meme shit, and then they'll bring in witnesses like calling like straight or resistant, like just like meme shit like that would be really fun, I think. Um, for this conversation, it doesn't really work because it's like just like politics kind of thing, but like even if it was like a different kind of conversation. I mean, we've like thrown out as like ideas like doing like the current like um Charlie Kirk thing, like what should you say, like Destiny's like response or like whatever. Like if we wanted to do like a debate about that sort of thing, like say between like Destiny or Wake or something, like this could work for that sort of thing, and then it would be fun, I think.
Yeah,
because
I
people
agree
could be
with that.
unhinged and funny about it.
What are you gonna do if someone like actually uses their face cam? How would you get it to work?
Oh, the same way as like this, just instead of having the little thing that would just have their cam on. Put it on the screen. Like this, the actual layout on screen is temporary. Until we
Oh, I
like
gotcha.
have a good feel for the show and like what we need, and then eventually we do want to put like a little more effort into it and like the actual like where everything's gonna be laid out, and yeah, we would include like for when we actually like commission a piece of art for this, um something that works for both. If we're using cams or if we're using um like avatars or whatever.
Sure. All right.
Somebody else
Yeah, I
asked.
mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the stress testing.
Yeah,
I'm curious how
and I
it pans
mean,
out. I'm also happy to just chat, like if you want to
I want to say, I mean, you guys are
brainstorm
in
on,
my
yeah.
server now. If you guys ever want to chat about it, or you know, there's people in the server, but like if you guys want to talk more about it, I'll probably make a channel for like eCourt. At some point, I will be opening my Discord server for like whoever to join, and probably make a channel in there for that. For people to give ideas or talk about the last episode or whatever the hell else. And yeah, I mean, you guys are always welcome. Like, we'll probably invite you guys back on. Um, or if you guys had a that you wanted to do with somebody, then in this kind of a setting, then you could do that. I know most of you guys are Peace Corps and Bunker people. People get into crazy arguments in those places. Like I don't know. We've done like a million kind of different random uh debates that have like I've seen you guys in. Um, I feel like particularly like Peace Corps kind of people probably love this kind of a format for a debate about a random topic.
Yeah, I can certainly see that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it'd be fun. Like I remember like I don't know, months ago we did like fucking 14th Amendment shit, and it was like going back and forth, or like originalism shit, or like whatever else. Like there's a lot of shit that could be talked about in this kind of like mock trial ish type way. Um, yeah. Somebody else asked. Pickles Nathan asked, has a more formal structure been considered? I also want to see full fledged policy debate, like high school competitive debate. This one is more. We're basing it kind of like mock trial ish, type thing, and then the other segment would be like moot court kind of when we're doing like ban appeals. Um, but yeah, I mean it's not gonna be like Lincoln Douglas, like here's your opening, you get 7 minutes. Here's the other person, 5 minutes, and then here's back and forth, and then that kind of thing. Um, but I think mock trial, there's a lot of pros here. And also, I mean, Kafka's a lawyer. I like law. It makes sense for us. I think this sort of thing can be fun. There's a space for it in the kind of debate, online Twitch poll, like, type space. And we've got a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
think
connects
having
for people
something structured
go for it.
is good. I think anything more formal than this is just going to require way too much professionalism from the
Yeah, exactly.
participants.
And it's also like,
Yeah.
I mean, people have done like, you know, like actual like trying to do like Lincoln Douglas type debate online, and it's like I'm sure it works, but it's like I remember like seeing Destiny's been involved in like debates like this. The like a couple weeks ago, the fucking like Pisco versus Ryan Malali wasn't exactly this, but was judged, and like that was a whole meme of after the thing, and they were like fighting over like the judges and like stuff like that. Like I think um would benefit more from like something like this kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because like if it's like actually like William Douglas style, like you're actually not doing whatever. I feel like that is more a it's more boring, so it's not as entertaining, and b it yeah I think it runs even more into the kinds of issues that you're talking about. It's like are people gonna get pissed that they can't respond or in the middle of somebody's monologue?
Yeah, and speaking of Pisco, I just think, one more thing to consider is there are a lot of people who do these debates and they really want to ask their own question, where like
Yeah,
Pisco has his yes or no's, which is like if you know Pisco's not satisfied with Kafka's questioning, like how do you resolve the fact that he's just gonna he's just gonna be like I need to ask my yes or no question. Like I need
sure.
to do my line of questioning. And
In theory, like we
Yeah.
would in theory Isco, I think obviously so. In theory, he could be satisfied by like Kafka's gonna be good enough, or he would object to something the other person's saying. Like if we had Pisco on, we would definitely want to like allow like objection like logical fallacies, and we would expect him to do a lot of those. Like objection, like he just said this, but here's this, or like that sort of thing. Because like you're right, like the main kind of drawback in this is that it's not back and forth, where people are gonna want to be doing back and forth. Um, I definitely would want to like for future things and like even for this one, like we kind of told you guys, but we didn't really put an emphasis. Like at least for me, like and I've talked to Kafka about this as well. Like we definitely want to like emphasize like, hey, you can object, like you're allowed to do that, and like fucking go for it. Like if it gets too annoying, like we'll tell you no, we'll overrule, we'll like object, whatever. But um, like go for objections, because it's not back and forth. But we still want to have that part included, kind of.
I think the objections could be funny, um, if the participants are actually like playing along with it as like a
Yeah,
show,
exactly. And I think that's
giving
also the kind of thing like it is kind of like we are putting on a show kind of with this sort of thing.
yeah.
Of course. And so like I mean you guys were good sports about it really. And I think that's something that we would want from anybody we got. Like even if it's like I mean like we're kind of like drawing on like you know like the like trial shows like fucking Judge Judy type shit. It's like shit like that like it's where it's sort of formal but also they're like yelling at each other kind of and it's like something like that like is kind of like sort of something like that, but like more serious, like debate type is like kind of at least my vibe for like how we could do this sort of thing. And like um, the objection stuff, like we would want everybody to be playing along, and like the idea is like here's how it is, this is the show, play along, act like a lawyer, and do your meme objections. Like this is a TV show, and like objection, he's being retarded, like shit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, as long as it's explained to them beforehand, like it shouldn't be a problem. Unless
Yeah,
people are just like totally unreasonable and like acting out. But
and in theory, like obviously Kafka and I, we are DGG adjacent. But I mean, we have lots of connects. Like in one of the first, we do at some point want to have like Destiny on, for day 8 with somebody like on whatever, um, and like in theory, like eventually we're gonna have like enough shows where like we can just show people like, hey, this is kind of how we want to do. Or like we would have like, hey, this is a really really good example of the kind of thing that we want to do in this show. If you want to watch this, like this is sort of the vibe that we want for it. If you want to do this sort of thing, then like come on. Um, and like at some point like I do want more people in the server or whatever, and like it could eventually be like somebody can like ask like or either if we don't have a show scheduled for like a week, like we will either like invite people on to like, hey, do you want to do the show, you can discuss this with this person, or do you know someone you want to debate, or like it could be people coming to us and they're like, hey, we want to have this debate and we want to do it on the e-court because we like the format and think it'll be funny, and then we could do that.
yeah, no, I get that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I think
want to keep you guys super long.
I'm looking forward to
You
it. I
go
think it'll take a lot of legwork to build
yeah.
sort of a reputation, but
Mm-hmm.
there are probably people who are like, yeah, I kind of do want a judge to sort of arbitrate
Yeah.
the debate a little bit. And then if they don't want to, then they can just live stream it somewhere else,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. I mean, we've got connects on with lots of people. I think that would be down for this sort of thing. I mean, Destiny, Pisco. I mean, Connor, like Wick, uh, Kafka and I have both been on Wick. Like, we know a lot of people, and I think there's a lot of people that would be open to this sort of thing, even as just a meme, as like a one-time thing. Went on to to play along. And I think it's a fun thing. But yeah, I don't want to keep you guys for super long. It's obviously for if people are EST or Mike.
Yeah, just one last thing. So I think one benefit of doing it this way too is by having the outline like this, you'll make it more likely for people not to be able to just stream their own whatever's going on their screen and have to kind of rely on your stream for the whole thing to be shown, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true, kind of. Yeah, I expect like if we're having streamers on, which we do want, it would be like like they can be streaming at the same time, but they would probably have like my stream on their screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of works out that way, and like I mean, like your Prime Kais, your Wix, your Chud, but used to do like panels and shit. Like it's that sort of thing, and like we would eventually want we'll have whoever on and like streamers and whatever. But yeah, we would want to have like build up my channel and yeah, that sort of thing, and it definitely works for that. And also this is just like one show that we want to do. It would be like every other week or every week. We would do the ban appeal thing, like we've got connects with like the Destiny subreddit mod, do ban appeals, maybe DG chat moderator, like. But we would also want to do like if somebody wants to do the trial of Gondam and do like the Peace Squad, and one of the Peace Squad mods wants to do that, or Wick does there's some people banned in Wick's server and like people were pissed about those bans, shit like that. We would be super open to like all kinds of things.
I'm totally on board of being involved in that one, so just let me know.
Hell yeah, bro. Good. But yeah, unless you guys got anything else, pretty cool.
That's all I got. If anything you need in the future, let me know. And it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you guys spending the time. Really.
Yeah, it was fun. Good luck, man.
Yeah, thanks.
It's getting near my bedtime.
Yeah, same. I've wake up in like 4 hours or 5 hours, some shit. So.
Congrats.
Should be fun.
East Coast losers.
Yeah. Sorry.
See ya.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye, guys. Alrighty. Cool. Chat has some things. Luxor, you need to add the witness stand to the courtroom. So we do have kind of like next to the like judge's bench. This could be like states me like here we could put like a witness, right? But yeah, definitely we would want a witness stand. Because Nathan said give them 3 objections they can spend. We would have way more than 3. With like objections, it's like we're not going to limit them unless you're abusing it, and then it's like okay, you can't object anymore. That's kind of the idea that we have for because Nathan like NFL. Oh hey Chacha, what's up? Like NFL timeouts, kind of yeah. Honestly, NFL timeouts work really well. 3 timeouts to research, formulate arguments. Use a timeout to object. When you keep your timeouts and are able to object again, if you lose. Yeah, so I think that was one of the ideas that Kafka proposed to me. Was like, yeah, like leave it like let's just say leave it to judge's discretion. Like, if Kafka overrules you, he can tell you, hey, because you got overruled, you can't object again until I address you for the next time. And you'll continue talking to other everything. Warble says I couldn't hear well because at work, but y'all were civil as fuck, and I like it. Thanks, Warble. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean this format does lend itself to being civil, but it also lends itself. I mean, courts get pretty crazy sometimes too. Maybe that sort of thing. Something else I wanted to. Oh yeah, Chacha, you saying like NFL timeout kind of thing? It reminded me of. Does anybody here remember? When Dylan Burns was doing a debate between Destiny and the Corn guy, and he had a rule that you could do a cage match. Or like you had like twice during the debate, you could do like cage match, and then it's just back and forth. The moderator can't interrupt. I think I just was reminded of that, and I'm gonna bring it up to Kafka. I think that would actually work really well to like give this debate like kind of what Mike and Gilmore were just saying. Like people are gonna get really annoyed that they can't like do back and forth with the other person and they can't do it. I think that might be something that we could put into this, like a cage match type thing, where it's like, okay, you get to go back and forth now. You have a time limit. Once it's done, we go back to like regular judged stuff. I think that could be actually really, really fun. maybe for some debates, maybe for some not, but I think that would actually be really really fun. And yeah, cha cha, actual cinema debate, and it would be cinema. Like when someone like realizes it, like imagine like Kafka's like asking a person a question, they're in the middle of their answer, and the other person just goes cage match, and then boom, they do back and forth because they said some stupid shit and they want to go back and forth about it. That would be fun. Any other suggestions, criticisms, or anything from people in the chat? Um, I don't know who all was watching the whole time or if people just got here, but we're open to a lot. This is our like alpha test of the format. I'm very still kind of early in like the show and its production and that kind of thing, but it was I had a lot of fun for it. I enjoyed it. I think Gilmore and Mike good cases. Kafka did quite well. Um, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it too. What a day. That was fun though. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be that fun. Thought it'd be fun. That was real good. I thought. Oh hey Kev. What's up, buddy? Hey, I hope I was interacting with chat a lot during it, and I think that's definitely something I would want to do for like future ones because like obviously I'm the bailiff. I'm like producing, like moving stuff around, like meeting people. But like I'm not really interacting as much, and like we've talked about like other ways that I can get involved. Probably for future ones, we're gonna be trying out some of those ideas and seeing how people like them. Where I'd like interrupt to like say some dumb shit or like do like the Obama translator bit with Jordan Peele. What was it? I don't remember which one's which, but have you seen that where like where like Kafka will say something like super serious, and I'll be like, he's calling you retarded, by the way, like shit like that. I don't know. There's a lot of ways for that, but for the most part, I mean, I would be interacting with chat, writing down your questions, and probably I would at least for me, I would want like the like questions from chat to be like more often, um, as a way to also like give the like parties like the our debaters like some time to like take notes and like come up with their next thing they want to say or that kind of thing. Um, yeah, Warble says thanks for doing it, dude. You're welcome for doing it. Oh, I said when he was here, I thanked him for it, but yeah, Kafka came up with the idea and pitched it to me, and I was completely on board instantly. Um, I think it's super fun. I think it's gonna be a fun show. I think we're gonna get some good debates. There's gonna be a lot of cinema moments for future ones, and this one. Um, yeah, dude, be fun. Could maybe use polls for interaction. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking like, for like the amicus brief sort of thing, where we're like asking questions. Um, the idea is like if somebody asks like a super chat, like they could do that. Um, and like yeah, polls would also be fun. We had the idea of like doing like this one was like a bench trial, right? But we also had the idea of doing like a jury trial. And like for memes, like we could have like select like 6 or 12 people, and then we would just put like their cams on screen and just like watch them. And like it would be funny if they're just like doing random shit, like they're like vacuuming or like while they're listening, and it's like that sort of thing. I think would be really funny. Um, or we could do a jury trial where it's like um like polls, like poll the chat and the chat decides the winner, and like the chat's the jury, that sort of thing. Or we also considered like for a show doing like a panel of judges, and it's like a Supreme Court type thing, and it can be like some streamers, and it's like here's Destiny Wick and Erudite and Connor uh and Prime and whoever else, and it's like they're gonna be the judges, and here's the debate, and they're gonna decide. And we could have like judges deliberations be like a little like segment, and also for like if we have a jury, We could also have like the jury deliberations be like content and like put it on screen and like the jury will debate like okay who won, did they make their case, but they had this argument, but they had this argument, and like kind of like that sort of thing, and would be really fun. Blazer says, I thought you did a good job with the brief based off what you were working on off of in chat today. Yeah, I mean there wasn't much in chat, but I think because there's it's first show, not really that many people. We didn't advertise it much on purpose. We didn't want like a million people in here. It's because it's not a fully fledged out show. Once it's like we have the assets, we have our ideas, we know what we're doing, then we're gonna be like really pushing it hard and like advertising in different places that we have. But yeah, I mean the Amicus review, it's like the idea is like it's gonna be either really good questions that somebody in the chat has for like the kind of thing, or just meme questions um to just to have some fun. But yeah, thanks, Flexer. Zip Zip, do you have any emote slots? Add some emotes to your channel. I do have emote slots. I'm probably gonna add emotes. I might just add some ones that I like. Like DGG or other places. But also I do want to come up with like my own. I want like a cat one for Guinevere, but I'll probably like commission some stuff for that. But yeah, dude, I would absolutely emotes. If you have suggestions, once I open my Discord server up, I'll probably like put a like channel for like suggestions. And whoever just hey, do you want emotes or whatever. Once I open my server, I expect all of you in there, and you guys can suggest the emote. But yeah. Add a Kafka emote. His little cockroach guy. I will definitely add Kafka emote. That's awesome. He has a little bug guy. For now, the bunker is Zip server. Go check it out. What's going on in the bunker? Zip server right now? What's going on there? I see. Oh, I'm in the wrong server. Hold on. Yeah. Hello, where's the Zip podcast running late? Let's see. Gilmore, can you ditch the topic and ask Zip Zap why he's a food slopper? I don't know if Cerny is watching. I'm friends with Food Shop. Cool. Love food shops here. Cha-cha, it's not actually my server. Cha-cha. This is a Splinter server from Pisco's Discord. For now, this is where Gilmore and Mike hang out, or at least meet them. Vice Judge Kafka ruling against me because he hates Trump. True. I'll probably end stream. It is almost 3 a.m. for me, and I wake up in a few hours. Thank you all for watching. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you hanging out. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream, enjoyed this show. We'll be doing more e-court in the following weeks. We'll see who we get on. We'll announce it once we do. Follow here in Kick. Subscribe to my YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Kafka on Twitter. Real Kafka Esquire. Our honorable judge. That guy. Yeah. And EP Cryptic Command. And thank you, Luxor. Have a good night. You too. But yeah. Thanks for watching. Good night. Bye, Warble.